Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our video series on helping realtors, move from good to great. Introduce you to our latest agent that we're going to speak with, Chris Sapienza, one of the top agents in northern New Jersey. Chris has an interesting, I try and pick out something interesting about everyone that we're going to be speaking with. Kind of a really interesting thing here where he's a second career realtor, had two careers in realty. So I'm dying to hear a little bit more about this, and then we'll talk about his journey and his challenges. But let me introduce you to Chris to get started. So, Chris, tell us about two careers in realty.
So yeah, well, first, thanks for having me, and it's great to be here. But so yeah, my original real estate career journey began back in the early '90s in '91. I had just turned 18, going to get my real estate license and conquer the world. And as it turns out, at 18, I was not so good with managing commission and kind of living that sort of a life. So I left real estate after about 3 years. I went into more of a corporate background world in home furnishings, interior design. As a kid, little side story here. So my family moved to New Jersey back when I was in the fifth grade, and we moved to a new home subdivision at the time. So it was the first time I'd ever seen new houses, and they had model homes and floor plans and all of the things that, today are sort of old hat. But that's basically what I used to do every day after school. I would go to the model homes. I'm sure I drove that saleswoman nuts. But I memorized those floor plans. I knew those spec sheets. I could tell you, I still remember the names of the houses, how many square
Wow.
feet they were, what the prices and the options were. But I think that was probably the point where I knew I had some strange affinity for real estate. So, yeah, as I mentioned, started that kind of right out of school and then came back to real estate after a 20 some odd year career in corporate America back in 2020. So it's been about 4 years back. And yeah, to your point, it's a second go round.
I love that. Well, and certainly the home furnishings, right? Like your love for this, for the home, if you will, right? Kept you connected. So it is fascinating from looking at those floor plans, like you were talking about as like a kid, then getting it, staying in home furnishings and so forth it's obviously a passion. Maybe you didn't even know you had.
Yeah, I'm sure at the time I couldn't articulate it. There was just something that I thought, was great about being there. And yeah, as I look back, I think it's interesting because it definitely did have a bit of a spark in think the direction my life would take after that.
So although the second part of the career has only been about 4 years now, tell us a little bit about that journey from getting started, to where you are today, to the success you're having.
So I think coming back the second time, one of the things I had that I didn't have the first time was just a whole professional skill set, 20 plus years in sales management, the experience of life. So coming back, you know, COVID sort of happened to everybody. For me, it really was a huge shift in career and what I was going to do. So had to kind of use everything I had, hit the ground running, and that was a lot of work. But my first year back in real estate, I closed 21 transactions that year.
Wow.
So at the time, I didn't know enough to know, is that good? Is that not good? Turns out it wasn't so bad for your first year, but that was a lot of tenacity. And, I think one of the hardest things, especially for a new agent or somebody coming in, is really kind of understanding how much you have to put in, because this is a business of constant learning. And whether it's learning paperwork or what the paperwork says or what that means, or scripts with a client, how to talk to people, this is just ever changing. So in hindsight now, I look back and still to this day, I do a lot of continuing education. I'm always going to some seminar, some class, going to speak somewhere, going to listen to someone speak, but you can never know enough. And in this particular industry, especially this year in 2024, so many things are changing. Like that's going to be critical, I think, for anyone to be successful moving forward.
Excellent. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, learning from, having this other career you had, right, in corporate America, dealing with from management to so much stuff, right? You bring that to, a new challenge, right? With a whole new effort and, kind of a continue your passion as would just, sounds like it was not as challenging maybe the second time in. So what kind of challenges now that you knew, these last 4 years you got involved again at doing 21 deals, the first year is fantastic. I know the market you're in, we're not talking about $200,000 homes. So,
No.
you had a good hit right there. Now, as then you were continuing, obviously, to want to do more and more. Tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced the last couple of years that you've overcome.
I think it's the more business that you do, it's really learning to leverage, because as an agent, whether you're solo or whether you're with a team, your money making time is client facing, and so much of the job isn't client facing, from paperwork and tasks and compliance and all of the other what I call desk locking things. You really do have to learn how to leverage. So whether it is having the right support staff, transaction coordinators, to, in my case, I have a team now. I have other agents so that we can divide and conquer. But I think it's the name of the game to continue growing, just because as one person, your two hands can only do so much.
So how are you looking at growth now? What's your plan looking at now 2025 and beyond? The election's over. It is what it is. And, markets are what they are right now. At this recording, we're like a week from the election, us knowing who is what's going to happen now. So how's it going for you? What do you think, the plans are for growth for you?
So I think the number one ingredient for me for growth, and I would really challenge anybody to think about this, you have to almost ignore to a certain degree some of the macro factors, because this is inherently a people-driven business. And every year as your client base grows, as your database grows, I think one of the biggest challenges I went through and I see other people going through is that you have to continue to nurture that. Like, no matter what's happening out there in the world, when you take your eye off of that ball of nurturing your client base, you become susceptible to a lot of those other things. Real estate, pardon me, like a lot of businesses, word of mouth matters. So no matter what's happening out there in the world, if you've taken your foot off the gas of kind of staying in front of the people you've already done business with, or staying in front of the people that have already started to talk to you about doing business with you, you can get sort of mired down in all the rest of it, because then you're now overcoming all those external factors in addition to the internal factor that you took your foot off the gas in nurturing your database.
Yeah. No, excellent. It is, some of the stats in the industry are quite amazing. I think it's something like, 85% of people don't use the same realtor to sell their home. Basically, they don't remember. It's 10 years later, 8 years later.
Or it's funny, early we were talking kind of about getting started. My second year of business, I remember a client actually saying to me, "I didn't know you sold houses. I thought you just help people buy them." And I thought, oh my gosh, like, how did I how did I miss that message? But it goes back to what we were just talking about. For anybody that's not a realtor or not in real estate, like, their mind can draw whatever conclusion. So you being present and relevant, and whether it's in their social media, in their mailbox, in their driveway, a lot of the time, it's just that it's like what we're just saying. It's the continuing dialogue and conversation that makes them aware, if they weren't aware, that, oh yeah, I can sell your house and I can find you one. But it's why that is, I think, instrumental to certainly my growth now in 2025. And for anybody listening to this, I was telling a story the other day. In 2021, one of my earlier deals was a young woman who she was buying her first home. It was a studio condominium, 685 square feet. We actually got it at that time under list. So in the 2021 market, that was unheard of, $184,000 sale. puts food on the table, like that's the kind of work I would always take. So fast forward to this year in October, she reached out, she's getting married. So she wanted to sell the condo and her fiance wanted to buy a new house. Fantastic. So that $189,000 sale from 3 years ago turned into a listing, which is about 30% more than what she purchased it. And the new home that they bought is 1.5 million.
Beautiful. That's the story right there.
It is. And it's, you don't, I worked in retail we were talking about this for a long time. And one of the first things I remember learning was you don't ever judge somebody by what they wear when they walk in the store, because you don't know how much money is in their pocket. And it's somewhat the same thing. Like, you can't pick the clients that you think you should nurture because of what they did today. You nurture everybody the same because you don't know what any of them are going to do tomorrow.
That alone is a great tip, right? That is a great tip. This category, real estate, is unlike anything I've been marketing in every, 40 years, every industry you can think of. There really is nothing like this because of that. The unknown. I can buy a house. I've actually, had about 12 homes in my lifetime, right? Bought and sold different condos, homes, whatever. Or I have friends of mine that 40 years, they're in the same house, right? So you don't know. And I think that's the great, it's not like buying a car, right? Where at some point, even if I bought it, I'm going to look to do something else in 5 years, 7 years max. If I leased it 3 years, 4 years, it's a continual, right? So easier to stay in touch. But that point of nurturing everyone, no matter what, remembering them to remember you. So when that time comes, they come to you.
And last note on that, and not being afraid or shy to ask for business, because it's the other piece of feedback I've gotten from a couple of clients over the course of time. Well, I didn't want to say anything to my friend because I thought you were too busy. So I am unabashed about, at the end of every conversation, I'll say, like, and, have you guys talked to anybody that may have the need for a realtor in the future? I am never too busy. But it's funny that it's almost like this unspoken etiquette where if you don't ask, you don't receive. Back to what we were talking about before, the perception, I thought you only worked with buyers. No, I work with sellers. I thought you just seemed so busy.
Beautiful.
So nurture them and don't be ashamed about asking for business. Yeah, it is the best way to stay top of mind.
Excellent. Okay, one more tip I want you to give people, because I know this from you and you've given me this tip. Talk about the sponsorship opportunities out there. I think that's real. It's something that anyone can do and take action from this, but talk about how you do it and how you've been able to, use your suppliers, vendors, partners, whatever to, help fund a lot of your activities.
Listen, this business, again, similar to others, you are rubbing elbows, so to speak, with referral partners. Real estate, we need a good team. You need a good agent. You need a good lender. You need a good attorney. You need a good home inspector. There are all of these other professionals that you work with. Most of those professionals are dependent on the agent to get the work. 95% of any home inspection company's business comes from realtors saying, hey, this is my inspector. It's the same thing for real estate attorneys. I joke because in New Jersey, if you drive up and down the highway, like, there are a handful of real estate agents' faces that we see on those billboards. I couldn't tell you one real estate attorney, one home inspector. You know what I mean? They don't do it. So, as you're building that team of partners, it's important to track the business that you are doing and providing to them. So with every transaction, I make a note of who my attorney is, who my home inspector is, who my lender was, because I want to look every quarter, every couple of months and say, okay, they got 6 deals, they got 7 deals, because that starts to really clearly demonstrate a line, a partnership there for them to co-brand with you. And the co-branding is really what this is about. if there's a certain partner that maybe over the course of the year you're giving 20 transactions to, but the value, the retail value of those 20 transactions is, whatever dollar amount that is, there's definitely an opportunity to make that partner aware of the business that you're doing with them. Because if you can come to an agreement where they're willing to co-brand, co-sponsor, continued marketing with you, it's just going to continue to solidify more and more business from you going forward. And I think for a lot of those partners, it's also a big sense of a peace of mind. If they like you and they like the way you work, you're really making their job easier. If you can take them from 20 transactions this year to maybe 40 next year, maybe you're only one of a handful of people that they really have to work with. So I think when it comes to having a perspective on co-branding and sponsorship, just take a minute and track the partners that you're giving business to, and don't be afraid to have a conversation with them about the relationship that you've started to build and the opportunity to continue building that relationship by entering into some co-branding or sponsored marketing with you.
Yeah, yeah. No, obviously, I think agents are going to love hearing that. Asking, I think there are two elements to it that I think people would want to know. Let's just say, it's this the attorney after 20 deals generates $100,000 from you, right? Do you look at a percentage? Is it like a 10 to 15% you look to, recommend to co-brand?
So I think the best answer to that question is that you as a business, or whether you're a solo agent or a team agent, or you are a business. So what's the line item in your business for marketing for the year? So for me, it's X dollars. I certainly am contributing out of my pocket a portion of it. And I really look and say, okay, I've got 4 other business partners. So there's 5 of us that I need to support this budget. Therefore, in that case, it would be 20%, do you know what I mean, for each partner. But I think you have to have a little bit of a perspective, do you know what I mean? And if you're just starting, so maybe you're thinking your first year you're going to get into the direct mail world or maybe some social media ads, then you have to build a little bit of a forecast to say, okay, if I'm willing to, mark, let's say $1,000 a month, but I have 4 partners that I work with plus myself, can I get each of them to contribute a couple $100? You know what I mean? And then I'm going to co-brand and co-market certain things with each of these individuals so that they have the value there. But I think you've just got to kind of look at the total number of players. You have to have some ballpark on your budget. And if it's 10%, 15%, 20%, and also being conscious of how new your relationship is. It's going to be easier to get a bigger sponsorship, with 2 years of partnership, 3 years of partnership, 4 years of partnership. You may not get that kind of commitment the first year, but you may. It's just worth the conversation.
Yeah, yeah. And you have a way, last part to this is, I thought you had a really nice way of asking for the sponsorship dollars. It was something like, you've been putting together these co-op, opportunities. And before I go speak to, I realize that how many we've done 20 deals together, Mr. F. Hey, before I go talk to anyone else, I'd love to do this with you.
Right. You're my first choice. Have you been happy with the business we've done together? And that's always, I think, a great place to start. If somebody knows, and again, I'm going to just be illustrative. If an attorney is $1,500 and you've given them 20 transactions, that's 30 grand. So start with the thing that catches everybody's attention. Like, we've done $30,000 worth of business together. I'm looking at next year. I really love to keep growing that with you. You're my first choice for co-branded sponsorship on this. Here's what it looks like. Do you want that spot?
Perfect.
And the other thing is, you got to know, there's probably 1 in 200 agents that are having this conversation. So there is a degree of flattery somewhat to speak to there, because I am picking you. I would like you over here with me, and play into that.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you so much, Chris. This was great. We really appreciate the time. We're looking to share thoughts and, different ways realtors are looking at their business, being successful, taking it to the next level. This was perfect. Really appreciate the time.
Anytime. Thanks so much.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Bye bye.